On today's show, the Capitals drop 3 games straight for the first time this season. Should we be concerned? I'll discuss next on this edition of Locked On Capitals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, I want to thank you for making this your first listen of the day. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about the trade deadline and how it's taken, well, a bit of a different feeling as the Capitals have dropped 3 straight. Listen, there was some thought out there that the Capitals should make no moves. Why try to fix something that isn't broken? Are the Capitals broken? And what needs to get fixed? I'll talk about that a bit later. I'll talk about that despite the fact that the Capitals have dropped 3 straight, head coach Spencer Carbery is not concerned. But just to get it going here, we'll talk about the Caps as they fall to the Bolts, the Lightning this time, marking the first time all season that they have dropped 3 games straight. And in this first segment here, we'll talk about why that is. Well, I think right off the top, we could say that we're getting off to slow starts, and the play that we see out on the ice is a bit disjointed. The passing that we've seen, the zone entries, these kind of things, plus putting the Lightning on the power play multiple times in the game did not do the Capitals any favors. And one of the other things that has not been spoke about too much as of late is the fact that we are in the latter part of the season, and there is quite a bit of footage out there showing what the Capitals do out on the ice. The teams can prepare. There's no real mysteries anymore as they kind of know the book on what this team will throw at any potential team and how to launch any countermeasures against the Capitals. So I think that when you kind of put it in a blender, it is inconsistent play. I think that we're kind of just at, the later part of the season, there's kind of a bit of some fatigue that has set in. And just if you take a look at the bigger picture, that the other teams are prepared. But let's dive into the most recent matchup against the Lightning and what went wrong in this game. We'll talk about that. Their first losing streak of at least 3 games this season. Now, after a tough 3-1 loss to the Tampa Bay Lightning at Cap One on Saturday, things are looking a bit shaky for our team. And, if you listen to any of the podcasts out there or listen to any of the blogs out there, there was a real sense that should the Capitals go out and make any big moves, that at points this season has either been tied or the best team in all of the National Hockey League and have been on top of the Metro Division for quite some time, that why would you go out and try to shake things up? Now, the bigger question, however, is what moves should they make and what weaknesses did we see against the Lightning? So in the game, all things considered, if I'm going to cherry pick some good news, it is Alex Ovechkin as he notched yet another goal. So let's break it down. Alex Ovechkin managed to score the only goal for the Caps in the third period, lighting the lamp at 16:01. There was a chance earlier in the game that we thought the Capitals got on the board, but it wasn't to be. Now, that brings his career total, Alex Ovechkin, to 884, just 11 shy of Wayne Gretzky's legendary 894. So, despite some questionable play out on the ice, the Capitals and Alex Ovechkin in particular have been playing rather well. It's pretty amazing to think about how close he is to making history. And it's impossible to try to track and speculate on when he is going to catch and pass the great one, just because, some games he'll score 2 goals, some games he will score no goals. It does appear that it could be early April, but on this clip, it could even be maybe the latter part of March. But quite something what Alex Ovechkin has been able to put together, even despite missing a substantial amount of time due to injury. But the Caps kicked off this 5-game homestand with an impressive 7-3 victory over the Oilers. But that's when things kind of started to shake a little bit, looking like a dominant team on the ice. But since that high point, they have, really struggled. In the last 180 minutes of play, the Caps have failed to hold a lead and has only managed to score 4 goals. So this team that at times seemed like they had so much firepower, we have not seen that evident as of late. That's included losses to the Flames, Blues, and now the Lightning. So what do the players themselves, what does the future captain Tom Wilson think? He shared some insightful thoughts on the situation, saying, quote, "The Edmonton game was great. We came off a high for sure. We are making a lot of plays. The group looked great. But that being said, there are going to be ups and downs. We've got an experienced group in here, so there's going to be no panic. We need to focus moving forward," unquote. So I think that you have to kind of take that mentality that you can't think that, the sky is falling. Otherwise, the sky will fall. Despite this 3-game blip, I guess we're going to say, on the radar at this point, it seems to grow game by game at this point. I'm like, it's only 1. It's only 2. Well, now we're at 3. That I think that the leaders on the team, like number 43, Tom Wilson, have the right attitude and ultimately a wise word from a seasoned player. So defensive efforts and coaching remarks. Defensively, I think the Caps did a decent job against Tampa, limiting them to just 19 shots on goal. Carbery remarked, he said, quote, "I thought it was a good hockey game. Checking wise, I thought we did enough to win. There wasn't much offense either way. It was pretty tight. My only real complaint would be a little better with the puck and finish some chances earlier in the game," unquote. Now, saying that it's a good game and you won't make a lot of changes, it still resulted in an L. So at the end of the day, that is what is measured is wins and losses, and the Capitals finished in the loss column. So there's definitely room for improvement. Now, tough breaks in the game, all things considered. Talking about that early potential there from the Capitals getting on the board, the Capitals face some tough breaks in this game, like a disallowed goal that the Lightning challenged successfully for a high stick. That was, of course, on Jacob Chikrin. At first, they're challenging it, and I didn't see it at first. I'm like, what? Was there someone crowding in the crease? What happened? That was the case and was successful for the Bolts. The second period saw Alexei Protas almost break through on a partial breakaway, but Lightning goalie Andrei Vasilevsky was there to stop him. And ultimately, what happened to the Capitals? They got Vasilevski'd yet again, as he is one of the best in the NHL and definitely was evident on the ice. So now looking ahead, as the Capitals regroup from this stretch of games, the focus will be on addressing their struggles and finding ways to regain their momentum. And that is what they have to do. As you take a look at the standings, the good thing is that last night that the Hurricanes lost. So taking a look at the standings in the Metro, Capitals 84, Carolina 72. But if we want to look big picture here, if we're talking overall points, the Winnipeg Jets have 88. That is good for number 1 in the National Hockey League. So definitely something the Capitals will have to figure out in a hurry, as the next game is going to be tomorrow against the Senators, and then Wednesday against the Rangers. And both teams are not playing some of their best hockey as of late. So hopefully this is a good opportunity to rebound against a Sens and Rangers team that is not having the season that they had hoped for. Rangers currently sit at number 5 in the Atlantic. They currently won their last game. So hopefully the Capitals did, in fact, learn something and they can take that, what they learned, no doubt, by what Spencer Carbery, his assistants, breaking down the film, and address those kind of things. The sloppy play, the things that worked well for them earlier in the season necessarily aren't working as well right now. Alex Ovechkin, well, he continues to do what he does best. He continues to find the back of the net, but the rest of the team could definitely take a page from the Great Eight. As far as other news surrounding the game, before Saturday's game, the Capitals announced that defenseman Alex Alexiev was loaned to the Hershey Bears on a conditioning assignment. The 25-year-old played only 5 games for the Caps this season, with his last appearance way back on November 8th. We're into March, folks. It has been quite some time and the right move to make. And did it pay off? Well, he got a primary assist in his first game back. Now, there is questions about it. Players don't need to clear waivers for such assignments, which can last up to 14 days. Alexiev played for Hershey against Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Coach Carbery explained that the loan would help keep him game ready for a long absence. I'm here to tell you a couple things about that. That is also to showcase him. And I'll talk about that in the last segment about the trade deadline and what that means. But make no mistake about it, that is getting him ready. I mean, this is not a coincidence. It's not, we're talking about the trade deadline on Friday. There is no coincidence here that these players that have not been in action are in action this week. Not the case. So I'll talk about that a little bit more in the third segment. As far as Alexiev is concerned, good to see him getting in some time in Hershey. And like I say, a primary assist. I think things are looking up for Alexiev, at least in his first game back in Hershey. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about head coach Spencer Carbery and what his thoughts are on the Capitals' play as of late, dropping 3 straight. If there's one thing I know about Spencer Carbery is he takes a lot of pride in success. And with the Capitals struggling, by looking at him on the bench on the sides there, he looks more than frustrated. What are his thoughts about the state of the Caps? I'll break it all down straight ahead. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling full longer. Now, personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days, whether I'm snacking at my desk, on a road trip, or just need a quick protein boost. They're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open the shell for a satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can find me over on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So in this next segment here, we're talking about head coach Spencer Carbery and his thoughts about the state of the Capitals and what's going on. Coming off this Four Nations break, the Capitals started really strong in the 2 games that followed, but the wheel is starting to wobble for your favorite team and mine. So what do they do? So like I say, after a promising performance following the Four Nations break, the Caps now face challenges that have put a dent in their comfortable lead atop of the Eastern Conference. And make no mistake about it, the Carolina Hurricanes would love nothing more than for the Capitals to keep stumbling, fall down a couple stairs, and for them to go on a heater and make things really interesting as we head towards the final part of the season here. But as far as the head coach, Spencer Carbery, wasn't sugarcoating things after a rough 3-1 loss to the Bolts. He mentioned, quote, "It's not ideal, especially with the timing of where we're at in the season and the teams we're playing against," unquote. Carbery expressed that while he's not hitting the panic button, there are certainly concerns coming from 3 losses against teams that are gearing up for a playoff push. And, this is the thing that For the longest time, I would do these shows and I would talk about trades, and people like, don't make any trades. And to a certain extent, I thought that as well. But what's really being drawn into focus is this team facing some significant pushback, right? That you take a look at it, that they were riding high, but now, they stumbled against some teams that on paper should have given them little to no problems. I'm talking about the Blues. I'm talking about, the Flames, these kind of teams that the Capitals, they're going to face much worse in the playoffs. They've got to find a way to win these games. But analyzing the issues, so what's behind the Capitals' recent woes? Well, execution has been one of the biggest issues. After lighting it up with 15 goals right after the break, the offense has, fizzled, managing just 4 goals in the last 3 games and getting outscored 11-4. That's not a formula for winning games, and it's not on any one of the netminders, as both Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren, the best of the best within the Capitals organization, have been in net. And Connor McMichael pointed out that they might be overcomplicating things, saying, quote, "It's almost like we're getting too cute, a little too comfortable with the puck, and I think it's fighting us," unquote. And quite a bold statement from one of the younger guys on the team. But has been one of the Achilles heel of this team for a long time, is being too cute. Not necessarily this season. I saw it more last season, but they need to develop the shoot first mentality. Pepper the netminder with as many shots as possible, and good things will happen. Speaking of Connor McMichael, what worked for him all season was setting up near the net front. Not even that. Let's even really widen the lens here, getting 3 big bodies in particular. I'm talking Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'm talking Alexei Protas, getting Tom Wilson, getting them set up net front, either to screen the netminder or to have them set up front for a deflection. They're not going to be easy guys to move. Wilson, you take a look at how big he is, Protas and Pierre-Luc Dubois. Those are the guys they should have posted up front, and have guys like Connor McMichael, these kind of players, kind of get it to them, and they can either deflect it in or screen the netminder. That was the key to their success earlier in the season. Let's revisit some of those classic hits. Now, slow starts have been a big thing as well. Another area of concern is how slow the team has been starting games. They've let in the first goal in 4 straight games, which rattles their ability to build and maintain momentum. And, kind of the book on the Capitals this year is, despite, giving up the lead first, they found a way to rally back. Has not been the case in the last 3. Tom Wilson highlighted they've lacked the necessary intensity in losses to the Flames and Blues, but noticed improvement in the game against the Bolts. He said, quote, "If we play with that intensity going forward, we should be okay. We just got to start a little better," unquote. That from Tom Wilson. But as far as the locker room is concerned, the locker room that is said by insiders and just, people that cover the team on a bigger level, that the overall vibes are still good in the Capitals locker room. The atmosphere in the locker room is still positive. Players are confident that they can turn things around. Wilson said again, quote, "We don't like it, but we've had a consistent year. There's going to be ups and downs. We're not panicking now, not yet," unquote. The Great Eight echoed that sentiment, insisting on the importance of quick response to their current situation. Now, you take a look at it, Alex Ovechkin in particular in the game against the Lightning looked very frustrated. He looked frustrated against the Blues, that I think he's thinking to himself, come on, guys, we can do this. They just haven't been able to find a way to do it. So looking ahead, Carbery believes facing this adversity could turn out to be beneficial as they approach the final stretch of the season. I think to a certain extent, you can kind of, get to be a bit complacent when you keep winning and people keep telling you you're the best team in the National Hockey League, or at least the Metro Division, that you need to be challenged. And that challenge will be like working a muscle. It's like, being really ripped and having big arms or big legs. And, everyone's saying, wow, you have a really great physique. But if you stop going to the gym, well, those things are going to go away. So if you want to stay tough. If you want to have those big arms and big legs, or in this case, winning games, you need to be tested. You need to work that muscle of success. And, taking a look at what makes this team well, like I said, revisit those things. Don't be complacent and just take a look at what worked earlier in the season, vacuum that, put it in a sale to help push you across the finish line. As I record this right now, am I concerned? Moderately concerned, as the Capitals have not lost 3 straight all season. Bigger picture, I hate to kind of take a dive into the negativity deep waters here, but what happens if they lose against Ottawa? What happens then? At what point do the Capitals be concerned? And now Chris Patrick, who I'll talk about in a future episode, kind of had the idea that, we're listening to offers, and this was all before the losing streak, or maybe it was one game in between there. I think that, things have changed, that there's probably going to be a meeting between Chris Patrick and Brian McClellan saying, okay, what's going on? We don't want to lose the ship right now. We're in choppy waters right now. We're taking on a little bit of water. If we find the right pieces to help plug the holes in the boat, will that help us weather the storm and cross the finish line? I do think they are going to make some moves. And I've talked about on this podcast about potential players that would be good fits. Again, I wouldn't shake up a whole lot, considering that we know Ryan Leonard will be joining this team after Boston College wraps up their season. How much of an impact is he going to make? He's having great success in Boston College on the international stage. How will that translate to the National Hockey League? It really can't hurt, I guess I got to say. But I think that the Capitals, like I say, I'm moderately concerned, all things considered, but I don't think it's time to panic. However, I do think they need to go out and address what ails them. Still primarily the third line, depth scores, and I would say a depth defenseman as well. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will do that. We'll talk about the trade deadline and the tactic that Chris Patrick and the Capitals should make. I'll break it all down straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Well, the trade deadline is going to be Friday, and the need to make changes has been amplified, and the time to address them has been limited, as we have already started to see some big moves take place around the National Hockey League that I think even before Friday, if you wait till Friday, you didn't do your homework. It's like cramming for a test and, trying to study for a test the night before and hoping that you're going to have success in the final exam. You might, but you would have been better served to take care of it had you studied beforehand. Same thing goes for the Capitals. I think that this is making them really think quickly on their feet, as the momentum has switched for the Capitals. Like I say, dropping 3 games that if they make moves, they should, start to make them, I would say Monday, Tuesday. If they wait up until Friday, they've waited too long, because then it's just going to be a feeding frenzy, and it's going to be picking up scraps of this or that player, that if they want to go out and get that player that is going to help elevate this team over the top, it would be most advantageous to take care of it between Monday and Wednesday, in my estimation. So it's going to be a critical for the Capitals if they, in fact, want to make moves. And you got to think that they want to make moves, right? Considering how they played here, they should take care of this sooner than later. But let's talk about that, the trade deadline, and how things have kind of changed for the Capitals. And there's still a positive vibe around the team right now. And it seems like the current roster might just be the strongest version we've seen in years. And despite the 3-game losing streak, I still think it's true, because when I take a look at the lineup, there's no glaring piece on the ice like this guy. He's got to get out there, save, I'm going to say Lars Eller in particular. Jacob Vrana, again, I still think that if they could bundle him with some guy like Sonny Milano, that would be a good thing as well. So the interesting thing about this time of year, I'm going to talk about Sonny Milano here in particular, is that he has missed a substantial amount of time with this questionable injury that we really can't draw lines to. But guess who's back in action, or at least making steps in that direction? Sonny Milano, in the same week that's, the trade deadline. And Alex Alexeyev, who has been put in mothballs for quite some time, is, guess what? on a conditioning stint down in AHL. They are dusting off the used cars and the used car lot, giving them a fresh coat of wax, having someone detail the inside and outside. You look at them, they're like not the greatest cars, but if we shine them up good enough and, put a extra air freshener inside of them, maybe we can find a buyer. That's what the Capitals are doing now with Jacob Vrana, with Sonny Milano, with Alexiev, that we want to make moves, but we don't want to drain the pond. We don't want to give up a premier prospect. I'm talking about Leonard, Crystal, Cole Hudson, these kind of guys that we're willing to move guys. But if we can, how about we move one of these guys off the used car lot, try to bundle them together and get a decent return? Again, I don't think the Capitals are looking for a marquee name right now. They're looking for a player, primarily third-line center. The players that we've talked about on the show. That is what they need to do. So this is not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that Sonny Milano is getting ready for NHL action the first time in quite some time, like I said, even though we still don't know what that injury is. And Alex Alexiev, who has been in the cryogenic deep freeze, is getting thawed out down in the microwave known as the AHL Hershey Bears. Now, according to NHL insider Pierre LeBrun from The Athletic, the Caps are likely eyeing a depth forward, but we shouldn't expect any blockbuster trades that could shake up the team's hard-earned chemistry. The name that's being circled quite a bit is Lawton on that third line from the Flyers. Seems like a good upgrade. But there's other teams also circulating with him. That seems like the kind of move I could put my name on. A stamp of approval, if I was going to do that, would be on getting Lawton for that third line center. Now, after years of learning from past trade deadlines, the organization understands the risks of overextending themselves. If we reflect on past seasons, and this is a bit hard for me to talk about as these memories are quite vivid. The aggressive moves made at the trade deadline haven't always paid off. A glaring example was in 2017 when the Caps went all in, trading for defenseman Kevin Shattenkirk. The result, a disappointing second-round exit to the Pens. On the flip side, looking at the successful run in 2018, the Caps opted for a more measured approach, bringing in depth defensemen like Michael Kempny and Jacob Jarabek, which ultimately helped the team lift the Stanley Cup. So all things considered, Michael Kempny, if you remember that name, was kind of lightning in a bottle for the Capitals for a limited time, then faced a major injury. If they could make smaller moves like that, I think that could help. But, when the Capitals really threw that Hail Mary pass for Kevin Shattenkirk, even though that fizzled, I think you need to learn from your past mistakes. Now, team chemistry and focus, the theme is echoed by Elliot Friedman, also in the most recent 32 Thoughts podcast. Just like the Winnipeg Jets, the Caps are heavily focused on maintaining a strong team chemistry. Again, team chemistry is not something that is easily quantifiable. You can't look at it at a team statistic and go, team chemistry is at 86%. Someday you will, just like the crazy advanced analytics that we do see. I think that team chemistry somehow is going to get put into some sort of algorithm or AI generated data, and they'll say, hey, this team has, extremely great chemistry together. So any event, that technology right now is not available. But the one thing that we know right now is adding the wrong mix to screw up the pH balance, if you will, of the team could be detrimental. But to take a 30,000-foot view, take this thing way up there, Sonny Milano, like I said, is close to making his return, and Ryan Leonard might be joining the NHL after wrapping up his season at BC, Boston College. Of course, that's a bit of a foregone conclusion at this point. Leonard, as we know, a first-round pick from 23 and world junior gold medalist, is known for his competitive edge and can be a game changer come playoff time. So that's a thing to kind of keep in the back of your hat there as well, is that that Ryan Leonard is going to be here and ostensibly is going to be a game changer. How much can you put into Ryan Leonard? How much is he going to impact this team? Hopeful. Again, we have not seen him face off against NHL talent, but on paper, he seems like he should be a knockout. Kind of just draw comparisons to some elite players that you have seen out there, Macklin, Celebrini, these kind of guys, and see what kind of production they have. Again, not necessarily apples for apples comparisons, but sometimes these guys don't burst onto the scene right away. Sometimes it is more of a slow build. Think Connor Bedard, for example, even though he's kind of surrounded by a dumpster fire as well. But as the trade deadline approaches, it's likely we'll see the Capitals explore some modest additions, which I spoke of, but don't expect any major shakeups. The primary goal remains the same, preserving the team chemistry while enhancing the strength of our current team. So again, I think the Capitals would do well to take care of this sooner than later on Monday. If I heard Monday, I would say Monday. I would like to hear something, but no later than Wednesday. I think if they're going to make a move, that's when they should make the move. Because if you wait all the way till Friday, you're cramming for that test I talked about, and you're hoping. And I think that there's a certain level of desperation that seeps in when you have waited until that very end. Maybe you give up too much because you waited up until the final moment. All things to think about as the deadline looms. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. And when you're done here, head on over to Locked On NHL, where they have you covered throughout the entire NHL, 5 days a week, available on YouTube or wherever you find your podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.